It's time now for Call of the Wild, the official weekly coaches show of the Wenatchee Wild. Stay up to date with your team all season long with Call of the Wild. With head coach and GM Bliss Littler, here's the voice of your Wenatchee Wild, Arch Ecker.
Hello and welcome to Call of the Wild, your weekly Wenatchee Wild coaches show. I'm Arch Ecker alongside Wenatchee Wild head coach and GM Bliss Littler. The Wild have just returned from a 4-game Canadian road swing in which they took 7 of 8 possible points on the road, including our first trip out to the island. Let's recap the trip, and we'll start off with Wednesday night, an appearance in Coquitlam. You knew that Coquitlam was going to be a little banged up coming in. Their head coach is gone. He's off coaching the Team Canada West team. They're a team in a little bit of disrepair, but that doesn't mean that you can overlook a team like that. It means you still have to come out and play sharp, which your team did.
Well, Arch, we went in there and it was still in our memory bank. We were still remembering the last time we were up there, that as well as we played, again, we feel that Cooper, he can be one of the best goalies in the league, and that group's very capable of stealing a game, and they stole one from us early in the year. So we went in, and I think we got off to a good start, and we had an incredible second period, and then the third we kind of backed off, and we had to play 4 lines as much as possible because we played 4 games all week. But the Harris line, I think they saw 2 shifts in the second and only a couple in the third. But we got a lot of guys in, and guys played well, and it set the tone for a very successful road trip.
Well, the second period was off the charts. 7 goals on 21 shots. Just an unbelievable period. And it did set the tone. You held them to just 1 shot in that second period. And then for as much as you say we pulled back in the third, you ended up putting up 26 shots in the third period and not allowing a single shot against. That's the second time that's happened up there against that club.
Well, second time it's happened, and we're 1-1 in those 2 games. So it just goes to show you that the goaltender's a great equalizer. And again, it was good to see that we were able to give some of our younger guys a whole bunch of minutes in the halfway through the second and most of the third. That the younger guys they played a whole bunch. And got to remember, when they don't get a lot of power play time in most games, and so when they do get opportunities, they're going to make the most of theirs. They want to show that they can play in all situations, and when they get a little extra ice, they really took advantage of it.
Well, it's also important in a game like that where you've already blown the doors off in the first 40 minutes. You come out for the last period, and while on one hand you want to try to pull back and not embarrass another team because that's just not good juju, but you still have to refrain from letting bad habits start to creep in because you've got a long weekend ahead of you. You can't tap the brakes too hard. Guys still need to respect the game.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you respect the game. Definitely that Barry Wolf's team, they've been decimated by injuries. But the other hand, that we play, it's 4 games in 5 days, and if we shorten the bench, it's going to affect us Sunday afternoon, and we know that we have a very good hockey club, that home ice we feel is going to be very important to this club come playoffs, and we don't want to give a game away on Sunday because we shorten the bench too much on Wednesday, and the kids that played every other shift on Wednesday don't have any legs on Sunday, so it was kind of a tough balancing act. But again, I think there's guys played hard, but there's definitely a lot of respect shown.
A huge night of records, and granted, the 12 goals in a game, never been done in Wild history. Holding a team to just 6 shots, that's never been done. But the records that were set that were really impressive were the ones that Charlie Combs and Brendan Harris set. It happened on the same play on the Charlie Combs goal. Harris doing what he does, setting one up, and Combs doing what he does, blasting one home top shelf. But for those 2 guys to achieve those marks this early in the season, what does that say to you?
Well, they're having a special year. I mean, they're 2 pretty special hockey players, and I think Brian Williams complements them very well. So, yeah, well, there's a lot of hockey to be played, and again, those guys they're not playing for records. They're they're playing to win the BCHL is what they're playing for. That they got their scholarships out of the way, and if you ask anybody there, that it's not about records. It's about getting home ice and then winning that first round, winning the second round, finding a way to keep advancing. And I mean, the ultimate goal right now that we've set is we want to win the BCHL.
So a huge night on Wednesday, and then the ferry trip on Thursday, getting out to the island, our first visit out there, and our first chance to see really those opponents this year. Started off on Friday night in Nanaimo against the Clippers, and that was a game that the Wild performed very well in, but then in the end it kind of fell apart right at the very end. You had dominated them out, shooting them, holding them to just 4 shots in both the second and third periods. When we got to that second overtime, it seemed like Nanaimo found an extra step.
Yeah, again, sometimes you control a lot of the play. And again, I thought it was a very good game both ways. That I thought both teams had a good game plan, and it's unfortunate that we couldn't get a couple earlier because I thought that we really played well. And again, you got to remember when we're playing teams right now that our record's going to kind of dictate that people are going to give us a little more respect and get fired up to play us. And I just told our guys, expect everybody's A game. That it's something we want. And no doubt, Nanaimo's the most penalized team in the league, I believe, and they did a good job of staying out of the penalty box. You know, we had some opportunities early, and but they did a good job as far as they didn't take as many penalties as I thought they were going to take. Even though in the first period we definitely had our opportunities, and we just didn't score. And I think that they got to the overtime portion and they're pretty fired up, and it's, hey, let's get away from the game plan that we've had and trying to be really defensive and not give up outnumbered rushes and in attack. And I think we've been in that attack mode all night, and there probably weren't a lot of legs left because we were going awful hard. And they definitely got the better of us in the overtime.
What was nice to see in that game was getting some point production off the blue line. Logan Milliken had a nice goal, and then when you were behind in the third period, then Austin Chavez comes up with a nice one as well.
Well, again, those are two defensemen that are having both very good years, and it's great to see that the puck's starting to bounce their way.
Speaking of defensemen getting points, Chad Sasaki had what turned out to be the game-winning goal in Coquitlam. It was the first goal of the game, but it was also his first junior goal. Kind of surprising for him.
Yeah, as much skill as he has, that is surprising.
So moving on from the tough loss to Nanaimo, the next night you have to have a short memory because we're heading into Victoria to face the Grizzlies, the first place team in the Island Division. We knew we were going to get a solid effort from them, and it turned out to be an absolutely entertaining game.
Well, both teams skated. Both teams got up and down the ice, and I just thought it was a very good game. That both teams played well. As the game wore on, you could see that our guys, it was important to them that we knew we were playing one of the best teams in the league, and that wanted to get that rotten taste out of our mouth from Friday night. It didn't sit very well with a lot of guys as you ate breakfast, and you could see the guys on Saturday that we wanted to get that taste out of our mouth. That we knew we were playing a good team, great atmosphere in the building, good building to play in. It had a good crowd. And, we had our chances real early to maybe put the game away. Their goaltender, I thought he was exceptional. Kept him in it, and then it was interesting. We got a power play goal at the start of the third, and a shorty later on, and we got great goaltending at our end. So overall, I thought it was an outstanding game for us. That I was very proud of the effort that the boys put forth.
The shorthanded goal, Matt Baker scored it, and I thought in that particular game that Matt Baker was really playing with a chip on his shoulder. He looked like he had something to prove, and even on that drive particularly, that play, Anthony Amnitsky sent the puck up the wall to Burston gave it to Baker, but Baker just looked like he was a man on a mission, just with singular focus as he drove in. It was a beautiful goal and an epic celly.
Yeah, it was. All the way around, again, when you're shorthanded, you get an opportunity like that, and to bury it, it's kind of the cherry on top.
And that was the one that really kind of put the finishing touches on it as the Wild went on to win that game 3-1 over Victoria. Then a very quick turnaround because we had to get back on the bus, head back to the hotel, and then turn around 2 o'clock face-off against Alberni Valley on Sunday. That was a team that was playing their first home game in their last 8. So for them to be back home on their teddy bear toss game, they were fired up and ready to go, and it really set the tone for what turned out to be a very entertaining game on Sunday afternoon. Even though Alberni Valley may be the 5th seed right now in the Island Division, they proved to be a very capable foe, and it was a great game to watch.
Absolutely. It just shows you how important the power play is. That as well as we played, did we get 40 shots?
41, I believe.
41 shots with no power play. We didn't have one power play all night.
Amazingly.
Yeah. Again, that can be debated other places than here, but to have 41 shots and none of them be on the power play, boy, we had some really good chances. Ran into another hot goaltender. It was great though. I thought it was real good for our team to have to face some adversity where we had a couple bumps and bruises, some injuries. Guys were no doubt there wasn't a lot of gas left in the tank. To get there, and they really came after us. They knew what the schedule was. It was our 4th game in 5 nights, all on the road. They
played heavy and hard.
Yep, they came after us, and if you can do that and not take penalties, obviously the more physical you are, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And generally, when you're that way, you take some penalties, which tires you out more. It's tough to play that way. But if you don't have any penalties called against you, again, the first period they had 28 hits. The second period they had 14. The third period I think they had 9. And so you can see where it tires you out. And I think in the end we made one more play than they did, and were able to make that play count. And it really, we had to kill, I believe, three penalties, and Devin Cooley was amazing at times. He had 4 or 5 outstanding stops.
Absolutely, and of course we're going to talk about him in just a moment in his weekend debut with the Wild. But going back to that Sunday, the game with in the first period, Charlie Combs got the first goal, and that was one of those kind of goals where the rush coming through. And Harris had it and just kind of shoveled it sort of towards him as the guy stepped up and challenged Harris. Combs finds it on his stick, and there was a window about that big to shoot at.
Yeah, well, goal scorer. And we've talked so much about Charlie on here that's almost like we're his press agent. But, Harris made a great play. He made a great play where the guy stepped up on him, and he found a way to get into the area for Charlie, and it took Charlie no time at all to get rid of the puck. And there was, when you watched it on tape, you're like, how did that go in? And he's a goal scorer. That he doesn't need a lot of room, and again, I'm glad he's on our side.
There are days where the depth will pay off, and there's other days where your headline marquee guys get it done. Combs got that goal, and Brendan Harris got the game winner, and it was a nice follow-through after Brian Williams shot, and the rebound came right back to him. But Harris, with those amazing hands, able to corral a rebound and slide it around and tuck in the backhander.
Well, yeah, those are our 3 of our best players, and Harris and Charlie, they get absolutely abused. That you could call, if you wanted to, you could call a penalty almost every shift on the abuse those 2 guys take. And they've gotten good. They've just dealt with it. They know that it comes with the territory. That people try to slow them down one way or the other, and they've done a good job at I guess adjusting to that type of play. But it's real good to where those 2 guys are able to make plays that end up winning you a hockey game at the end.
It seems like, and they're not the only 2, it seems like the list is starting to grow of guys that tend to get abused night after night. I've watched Raby take some abuse, Vanderbeck as well. Some of these guys that make some noise offensively and maybe show other teams up with a little bit of their speed and their puck handling. Other teams call them out for it.
Yeah, it's one plan. It's one plan, and it's a plan that some teams are using. Usually that's the teams from outside of our division that only play us twice a year and don't know our personnel real well. It hasn't worked out too well. Again, the teams in our division that see us a whole bunch know that you can't scare our kids. That they're not scared. That's not going to happen. And it's second year in the league for most of these guys. That again, for the most part, our kids stand up for each other, and they've shown that they're not scared. But it is a plan that no doubt has been used, and it's, again, you can't control how other teams are going to play, and that's how some teams choose to play against us, think they're going to scare us. And, usually by the end they realize that that's not a great plan, and but our guys have adjusted well to whatever style teams are throwing at us.
Right before we left on that road trip, the big trade with Garrett Nieto being sent to Springfield in the North American League, Devin Cooley arrives here in Wenatchee, showed up just in time to get on the bus with us and head off, and he was able to play in two of the games over the weekend. Had the Nanaimo game on Friday night, and then, of course, he played against Alberni Valley. Granted, it's a small sample. You've seen him play in two games. What's your initial reaction to Devin Cooley's play?
Well, like I said, I think for both kids, they both needed a change of scenery, and again, I don't think we could be happier right now. And again, Gar got over to Springfield, and he had a great game. And again, it's sometimes people think when you trade you have to be mad at a kid. You're not mad. I mean, Gar's a great kid, and we find out Cooley's a great kid, and we knew he was very athletic. And you know what? I think both kids needed a change of scenery, and both kids have played well so far.
So the Wild return home after this recent 4-game swing where they took 7 of 8 points, still in first place in the Mainland Division. We'll take a quick break and come back to break down the upcoming weekend homestand as Nanaimo and Powell River come into town. Back in just a couple of moments here on your Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network. And welcome back once again to this week's edition of Call of the Wild, your weekly Wenatchee Wild coaches show. Arch Ecker alongside Bliss Littler. This weekend, the Wild return home for a 2-game homestand to wrap up the pre-Christmas portion of the schedule. And it all starts off Friday night with the Nanaimo Clippers coming to our barn. We just saw them last Friday night, and it's interesting that you get a chance to face a team that quickly. Again, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes the hockey schedules just sort of play out that way. A disappointing loss in Nanaimo on Friday. They come here, and I know our guys are ready to face that challenge.
100%. That it's great that we get to finish up these last 2 games with 2 teams that are playing well, and we get to kind of, even though we played well, and hopefully it's a very important point that we got against Nanaimo, but I think it's important that our guys remember it. And hopefully we can get that taste out of our mouth also.
You know, sometimes when you take a look at a team, you can break them down on video and you can identify certain things as far as their systems and what they do. But until you actually get on the ice and play with them, sometimes there's aspects of their game that may, I don't know if I want to say surprise you, but maybe be a little more in one direction than you may have expected. Was there anything about Nanaimo that was a little different than you anticipated?
Well, like they're the most penalized team in the league, and I kind of thought they would have taken more penalties, and we've scored the most power play goals in the league by 9 or 10. So I think that might dictate a little bit in how many penalties you're going to allow yourself to take. So I thought they played a very disciplined game. They backed 3 guys up. They did everything they could not to give up outnumbered rush in the neutral zone, and then when they had a chance to forecheck, they got after us. But for the most part, I thought they played a fairly defensive game.
So that'll be Friday night. Nanaimo Clippers here at Star Wars night. So there'll be a lot of fun things going on in the building. There'll be some photo opportunities out on the concourse and other things as well. Then Saturday, we've got the Powell River Kings coming into town. It'll be their only visit here this season. We did see them once already at the showcase, and that was the first loss of the season. It came in overtime. It was a 5-4 overtime loss. Tell me what we know about the Powell River Kings.
Well, they're a team that's all about structure. They have again, their coach does a great job there. They're a very structured hockey club, and we felt we had chances in that game to win by 3 or 4, and that didn't happen. And they hung around long enough to make some plays at the end of the hockey game to get us. So. We're going to have to remind our guys that they gave us our first OTL of the season, and let's be ready to put that one in the right column.
So that'll be also Ugly Sweater Night, Saturday night at the Town Toyota Center. The Ugly Sweater Contest. Bliss, have you ever had an ugly Christmas sweater?
Boy, you got to be careful there.
How much trouble can you get into? You might as well just...
Yeah, you know what?
I mean, if the wife gave you a sweater that she was proud of and you happen to think, I don't know about that sweater so much, you kind of kept it to yourself.
Yeah, you know what? My wife's got pretty good taste, and so does my mom. So, but I guess there'd be some people that might say that, hey, Coach, you picked that one up for Ugly Sweater Night. I guess that's a matter of opinion, but...
Have you ever worn a sweater that you felt pretty good about and somebody made a joke and said, what is this today, Ugly Sweater Day? And you're like, what? I like this sweater.
Yeah, I've had people say, hey, it looks good on you.
Yeah. You buy that sweater, you get a free bowl of soup, right?
Yeah,
that's how that works.
Yeah. So sometimes I'm accused of not dressing all that well.
It's funny, the broadcaster up in Alberni Valley said that he's going to start a petition to prevent you from wearing turtlenecks because he thinks that's the secret of your success. You're the only guy in the league that wears turtlenecks, and that's the reason why we win. Another fashion statement. Yeah,
he's really observant, I guess. That'd be tough to tell in that rink. That nobody let me in on the there must be a contest going on in the BCHL on who can have the coldest rink in the league. Because this past weekend, all 3 rinks were just chilly, and but yeah, that's an interesting observation.
You just never know. Ugly Sweater Contest Saturday night, and that'll wrap up the pre-Christmas portion of the schedule, and a much-needed break. I think the guys they've dug in, they've done everything you've asked of them in the first portion of the season. To have an opportunity to get home and relax with family should do well for them.
Well, again, we don't want to check out till Sunday morning. Let's stay checked in, and we have two good hockey clubs coming in here. It's going to take our A game to keep collecting points, and that's the deal. This time of year is we got to keep collecting points. That every night we suit up, we need to keep collecting them and win as many hockey games as possible, and see when we get to the end of February where that takes us.
Sounds good. Look forward to seeing you out there this week. The Wenatchee Wild back home this weekend, Friday and Saturday night. The Nanaimo Clippers here for Star Wars Night Friday, and then the Powell River Kings for the Ugly Sweater Night on Saturday. That'll do it for us for this week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Arch Ecker with Bliss Littler. This is your Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network.
You've been listening to Call of the Wild, the official weekly coaches show of the Wenatchee Wild, a presentation of the Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network.